Always.
Okay, Sparky.
YouTube doesn't bother with that one. They like that
Right.
one. That one's okay.
Sparky.
No, but it wouldn't. There's no royalties on that one.
No, there's not.
That's just sound effects. So this week's tip of the week, we're going to talk about temperature and how heat is transferred.
Oh, I'll get the
temperature
nerd alert.
is just simply an average value of energy for all the atoms and molecules in a given system. Temperature is independent of how much matter there is in the system. It's simply an average. So that's basically what your temperature is, which is crazy. Somehow somebody figured out a thermometer so it could give me the average of all the energy outside on any given day. You got to get, like, Will could probably explain that with his PhD in physics. I always love definitions like that. The definition is more confusing than the theory.
Right.
So how's heat transferred? So heat can travel from one place to another in three ways. It does it by conduction, convection, and radiation. Both conduction and convection require matter to transfer heat, so you got to have material there, something solid, typically. No, it doesn't be solid. I guess it could be liquid too. So that's kind of a misstatement too. So if there's a temperature difference between the two systems, heat will always find a way to transfer from higher to lower. The reason why this is all important is because it determines how you address insulating your home, whether it be windows, insulation, air barriers, radiant barriers, all those kinds of things. So you have to understand what the material or the area is most likely to gain or lose heat from.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. So conduction is the transfer of heat between substances that are in direct contact with each other. Aluminum is really a great conductor.
Is there a tip
so
in here?
remember the old aluminum
Okay.
frame windows?
Yeah.
So the old aluminum frame windows, there would be so much heat transfer from outside to in, or heat loss from inside to out. So to slow conduction, you need to have insulation, and it could be simply an airspace. That's why thermal pane windows have the gap. That's to stop the conduction part of that.
The transfer
So
of
thermal
heat.
break on a wood frame window to an aluminum, right?
Yep.
Convection is just simply thermal energy transferred from hot to cold by convection. That occurs when, like, maybe warmer areas, liquid or gas, they tend to rise. So then cool air has to take its place below, so that you start getting what we call convection currents or the stack effect. So this happens like in your crawl space. If you got your furnace in your crawl space or your ductwork in your crawl space or basement, as they warm up, that warm air tries to rise. Well, it has to pull cool air in from the rim joist or the basement door or whatever, and you start getting that current as that air runs up through your roof and through your attic, and it usually does it where we have plumbing stacks.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make sure all the plumbing stacks, all those openings are closed off, and it makes a big difference. Then you stop that stack effect, everything tends to hold up better.
Right, and your
The last one's radiations.
saving energy that way too, then, because you're not just
Absolutely.
releasing it.
So we go back. Conduction would require insulation or airspace to stop it from doing that. So like when we frame exterior walls, we've always done a single wall.
Mm-hmm.
So you always do single, 2x4 at 16-inch on center. But if you actually did a 2x4 wall with the studs staggered, so that your exterior wall and your interior side of that wall are not touching,
Yep.
you can actually decrease the amount of conduction that you have in that wall assembly, and if the R value shoots way up because you have no conduction then.
Right.
Convection takes air sealing to stop, right? If you can stop those currents, so in your attic where your vent comes through your main stack, or your chimney, your flue, you close all that stuff off, you stop those convection currents. So the last one's radiation. So most people understand radiation probably better than the rest of them. It's just the between the heat source and the heated object, there's no contact between the two, but the heat itself radiates, the energy radiates towards, and that's actually much easier to fix. We do it basically with radiant barriers, with foil-faced sheathing, with foil on top of the roof. We use foil-faced plywood on a lot of our roofs.
Mm-hmm.
And
to bounce that back
it's
up.
amazing that radiant barrier plywood. It's a few dollars more, but I've been in houses under construction and they are literally before they're finished, just when the roof's on,
Mm-hmm.
they're 15, 20 degrees cooler than the house next door.
Wow. Right. But,
Just from the radiant barrier plywood. So that's just like electromagnetic radiation. So what, by understanding the type of heat transfer you're trying to correct in your home will help you determine the proper way to insulate that.
right. And that's how the
So therein lies the tip.
Yeah, okay, and that's what also melts vinyl siding when the neighbor's gets new windows in that has that reflective barrier on it, and all of a sudden you're melting the neighbor's vinyl siding.
Yes, the reflected radiation is hilarious.
Yeah, so that's where that last part comes in too. Is when you're installing windows, you have to kind of watch where you're installing those windows, and if the neighbors have vinyl siding or wood siding or anything like that, because that additional radiated heat will melt their siding, make their paint peel on their siding. So it does have an effect. And
that's the low E366 that has that reflective barrier and stuff like that. So
yes.
It is kind of funny how you can mess with stuff.
So that's the 3 types of heat. I think we're there, right? We'll be back right after this.
Is Mighty House. Mighty House will return.